As we come out of winter, we enter the spring. Now the spring for me is possibly my favourite time of the year to go fishing. The fish are up for a feed, but it isn't always easy. So these are my 5 top tips on how to get the most out of your spring fishing. So tip number 1 is zig fishing. The weather that I'm experiencing here today is classic of early spring weather. Freezing cold nights, bright, warm days, very, very high air pressure. The fish at this time of year are going to spend a lot of their time up off the bottom, searching for that heat, getting a bit of heat back into their body, and zigs can be absolutely deadly. Now, a lot of people still don't use zigs, or they don't have adequate kit available to be able to fish zigs at the drop of a hat. I have a little bag just like this one here, and it's got absolutely everything in it that I need. I've got my long anti-tangle sleeves, a selection of different zig lines, zig aligners in varying different colours, and also the hooks. That all goes into one little bag that I can leave in my holdall. And on days like today, when it might not be happening on the bottom, it's no drama to drag this out, tie a few zigs up, get the zigs out there, because like I say, this time of year the fish spend a lot of time up off the bottom searching out the warmest part of the water. Tip number 2, single hook bait fishing. As I've already mentioned, when it comes to fishing on the zigs, this time of year, the fish, they're up, they're searching, they're looking around, and if they come across a single hook bait, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to have it. And if you're not catching them on zigs and you ain't getting them over bait, having a selection of different bright hook baits in your armoury can definitely pull a bite out the bag when all else is failing. Tip number 3 is accuracy. Now, accuracy plays a massive part in my fishing, whether it be spring, summer, autumn or winter. But when it comes to spring fishing, I like to make sure that accuracy is absolutely key. Not only are the fish just waking up and are actively searching for bait, but there is also a lot more anglers on the bank. More anglers on the bank means an increase in pressure. The fish are going to become a little bit warier than what they have been throughout the winter when it comes to feeding on bait. So I want to make sure that my baited area is as accurate as possible. As well, in the spring is normally the first part of the year where we see the big winds. Big winds can obviously hinder accuracy, so fishing at a range that you can bait, and not only bait at the start of the session, but be able to maintain accuracy throughout the whole session. If the weather changes on your trip and you can't reach the same spot, you're going to be baiting 2 areas throughout the duration of your trip. Make sure that the spot that you find and that you start fishing is an area that you can continually bait accurately throughout the entire course of your trip, because accurate baiting sure as hell gets you a lot more bites. Tip number 4, the continued use of natural bait. Now, natural bait plays a massive part in my fishing all year round, and I see a lot of anglers come away from the winter fishing, come into spring like what we're entering now, and they just completely dismiss the use of natural bait. My favourite natural bait would have to be bloodworm. It's present in every single lake that we fish. This time of year, the fish are going to be grubbing around, they're going to be looking for as much bait as possible, and including bloodworm in your mix is a way of getting the carp down on the bottom and getting them grubbing around. And not only that as well, it isn't a big enough item of bait that you're going to fill the fish up in. It's more scent based, so the fish are going to be rooting around, therefore keeping the fish in your peg longer, making them easier to catch. Tip number 5 is bait. Now, I know this is going to look like a blatant plug, but as I've mentioned, when it comes to single and zig fishing, yes, you do get periods like we're experiencing now where it's high pressure, the fish aren't necessarily going to be eating, but you also get the big lows, the big southwesterlies, low pressures, the times of the year now when the fish are really going to munch. They're coming out of their winter slumber, they're starting to get warmth back in their body, they're going to be looking to pile on as much weight as possible, and having enough bait at your disposal for a session is very, very vital. I see a lot of people turning up, having a very, very good first 24 hours of their trip, only to find in the last sort of 24 to 36 hours of the trip, they're running low on bait, they're scrimping and they're not putting as much bait in, and therefore not getting as much out of the session as what they possibly could be. Whether it's frozen, fresh particle or shelf life particle, I always make sure I've got plenty in the van, because when it kicks off at this time of year, it can kick off in some style. And if your lake is going to do a big one, the spring is going to be that time, because the big ones are going to be waking up, they're going to be looking for food, and they're going to be the first ones on the spot having a proper munch. So make sure you got plenty of bait with you in case it proper kicks off. So they're my 5 tips. Now, spring is a very, very changeable season, and by having all of them at your disposal, ready and prepared, it just means that you're going to get the most out of your session when you're out on the bank.